Right, so today I'm going to be showing you guys my top 14 tips in ZBRUSH. So the first one is how to effectively extract your mask. Say for this one, in her face, I got a metal piece that I want to pierce into this cheek. What I want to do is I'm gonna turn off smoothing and turn everything off. Do the thickness of 0.001 and turn on double and then do extract. And then I'm gonna accept that. Just gonna clear the mask. Isolate this. Delete hidden because I don't need the back face. Now all I need to do is I'm just gonna fix this one real quick. Actually I'm gonna turn on double. You can find double in display property here. Okay, so now what you want to do is you want to create a smooth transition, smooth edges for the ZBRUSH to effectively work with. Now you want to mask every single vertex of the turning corner of your mesh. Like that, just one single vertex is good. Okay. It doesn't have to be precise, but you just need to have the information for ZBRUSH to work with. It will be changed anyways because we're gonna ZBrush it anyways. So now that you got them all, you go to deformation, polish by features, turn this button off and do it a few times. When you feel that the edge is smooth enough, you clear the mask and then do the ZBRUSH for one for now. I test it. Okay, now what you want to do next is do the same thing because the edge is not very straight. You want to be as straight as possible. Polish by features again. Okay, I think it's good. Just need to move this corner up a bit. Right, do a ZBRUSH. Right, so just fixing this one up a bit. Again, this is a very quick way of doing this. It's not going to be precise as hand retopology, but it will throw out a quick and dirty result. But for most case, I use this mesh and then do a panel loop with it. And then crease it, do a creasable grip, and then a normal crease. If this one is not creased, do it manually. I subdivide it and then polish it a little. Now I work with it. Right, so the next tip is when you need to do you need to have a massive change in your mesh. Say you want to pierce a hole in this mesh, and then you essentially ZBrush to have a clean topology, and then you go in and get all the high poly details back. But since the mesh is very small, when even you do the high resolution Dynamesh, it's not going to be enough resolution. So I'm just gonna pierce in. I'm just gonna clone this one out to work it with a single subtool, and then insert a cylinder 3D. Okay, pierce it. I'm just gonna do a really rough one for demonstration. Right. Okay, boolean, subtract, like boolean on, like that. Okay, and then I'm gonna turn on DS subd and then make boolean mesh. Okay, now I'm gonna do a Dynamesh. Since the size is very small, the Dynamesh will not be enough. resolution. So what I'm gonna do is pull this one in here. So this is the project that you're working on. What you want to do is you want to clone it out so that it throw out a single subtool. Now you want to activate the Gizmo 3D. Okay, so you want to hold Alt and click this one. It will be relocating the gizmo into the center of mass, and then you Alt click this one as well. So it will be turning your gizmo orientation back to its original. You jump out your camera far away from the object, and then do a 10 times scale. Just do it, and then you Control Shift D. You wanna basically back this one up. You don't wanna touch it. Say for example, if you mess up, you can always delete this one and go back to the original. Okay. Now you can do a Dynamesh. Should be enough. And then do a polish creep edges. Okay. Now you do a Control Shift D again. Now you want to do ZBRUSH. I'm just gonna do a really quick dirty ZBRUSH. Okay, much better. Now what I'm gonna do is I turn. This is your low poly. This is your high poly. You're gonna do a what is it? Sorry. Project all. So this is your low poly. You wanna essentially get the high poly detail back into your low poly. So you're gonna project, isolate it, hit project all, and then Control D. Control D to subdivide it, and then project it until it get to the point where you don't see the topology. Okay. Now, since the high poly is the Dynamesh result, you want to do a more polish so that it get rid of the jagged edges. This is essentially your mesh. Now what you want to do is say, because we duplicated from this mesh down under, we haven't changed the gizmo yet. So if you go back to locally, you scale down to 0.1, and then you want to go back to your project and then insert it back in. Right. Delete all the unnecessary stuff. Now you're left with this one. If you usually you work in symmetry, sometimes you need to scale your object up and down, but at this stage, when you scale it, it's not gonna scale in the center of your gizmo. So what you want to do is just turn on local symmetry and then scale it. Simple, no brainer. Okay, so this tip is, I don't know what to call it. It's actually a lot of stuff packed together to accomplish one task. Essentially, I got this mesh that I blocked out in Maya. I import it into ZBRUSH and to do the high poly. But the method of doing high poly in ZBRUSH is required Dynamesh. But the mesh is very small, just as my last tip pointed out. The mesh is quite small, so you can't do the Dynamesh. What you want to do is you clone this out, okay, to work with it alone. Clone, okay. Now reset the transpose, the gizmo. Crease it, do the creasing, and then subdivide it, right, a few times. Okay, now I want to duplicate it. Keep the gizmo in the center, duplicate it by Control Shift D. Isolate this one. Now you jump a bit far from the camera and then do a 10 time scale, and then duplicate this. So you're gonna do Dynamesh. Okay, now you wanna polish it. Right, so you wanna get this, Control Shift D, just wanna back up this one. So this one is your low poly. You wanna go to the level 2 subdivision. You want and then project, and then up a level, project, up the level, project. This is your level 5. If it's not enough resolution, you can always subdivide it a little more. Project. Okay. I think it's okay for now. Right. You can get rid of creasing for now, because creasing can Quizlet can sometimes fight against your smoothness. Right, so you scale it down, bring it back to here, insert. Yeah, you got hyperbole, but keep the topology that you got when it comes in. It comes in from Maya. Maybe your art director wants to have the hole bigger. It's not very easy to accomplish in ZBRUSH, especially when you have the object not in the center of the world to get the symmetry function to work. Now what you want to do is you have this object, you go to subdivision 1, you export it out and go back to Maya, import it in. Now you can do your modeling in here, scale it up, right, export it back out, and then import it in. Keep it as the lowest subdivision, import in the one that you already tweaked. Now when you hit D to subdivide up, you go up your subdivision, it's not going to change your hyperbole. In this one I'm going to talk about my shortcut. To open this pop-up menu, you first need to create your pop-up, your menu. This one is my menu, and then assign the shortcut for it. So first I'm gonna go to config, preferences, config, and then enable customize. Go down to custom UI, and then create new menu. I'm gonna name it tutorial, and then the tutorial tab will be thrown at the bottom. You drag it out here. Yeah, I'm just gonna drag out some random buttons like transforms, activate symmetry, Control Alt and drag, drop it there, and then maybe lazy mouse. You will have to rearrange it when it's dropped into your menu because it's not very smart. Okay, so say this is the menu that I want to save. All you need to do is go to config, turn off enable customize. I go into the tab that I just created, hit Control Alt, and then single click into the menu name. It will ask me if I want to assign any hotkey. You can see the line here. If I don't want any hotkey, just simply move the mouse out of the area. In this case, I want to create a shortcut, which is maybe Alt L. Right. So now I'm going to go in and store config, and then store hotkey. Click this to store your menu, and then click hotkey, store hotkey, in order for ZBRUSH to remember what you just did the next time you open ZBRUSH. Okay, so now I'm going to hit Alt L. This is the pop-up menu that I got. Okay, so the next tip is going to be alter your move brush in order to make pointy tips. Like say for example you want to have an elfie ear for this guy. I'm going to move it up like that. But when you say I want to have very pointy ears, like maybe horns and stuff, that is very sharp at the tip. I make sure you have your move brush activated. You go to brush, curve, and then turn on Accucurve, accurate curve, in order to have a very sharp pointy tip. You can always go in and smooth it back, but this is the result you got. Okay, so the next tip is going to be multiple objects fast duplicated. Okay, I got a single cylinder here. What you want to do is hit Control and then drag out where you want the second mesh to be, and then release Control and then essentially drag it out infinitely. Okay, right. Now you can do clear the mask and then do maybe auto grips. Okay, now you can do a bend curve in order to achieve special effects like horns and stuff. This is the axis of the bend. It's actually incorrect, so I'm gonna change it here. Move it so that the first and the second is pointing to the right direction. Now crank up the segments. You can scale it in to make a horn. like that. Very quick and dirty. So maybe you have some fine details that you want to amplify. There's a simple trick that you can do, is that you can go to layer, create your layer, and then essentially smooth them out. Do it very strong smooth, right? Then you turn off record, and you essentially go back negative value in order to have it strengthen your smoothness. This is called reverse layer technique. This might be a no-brainer for most of you guys, but I'm just gonna throw it out anyways. When you're working, sometimes you want to compare the old result with the new one. You're gonna have a essentially a snapshot of your model in the corner, so to compare. Maybe I'm gonna leave the mesh here and then shift S. You got a snapshot over there. You can do it multiple times, and then Control N to clear it. Sometimes you guys will find that the Posable symmetry, maybe I'm gonna turn off activate symmetry, make some adjustment with the arm here. Okay, and now I turn on symmetry. It's not working. When I turn on Posable symmetry, it's not gonna work as well. So Posable symmetry is only working when it has the middle point of an object. These two arms are separated. It's not a single mesh. But if you have one single piece symmetrical object, like this face, this head, I'm going to tweak the head a bit and then turn on symmetry, activate Posable symmetry. You can see it's working now. Okay, sometimes you find that it's very hard for you to smooth the edges, the border edges of the mesh. Say I got thickness on this model. I want to smooth the edges to make the transition smoother, but I can't with this since the border edges will get smoothed, and it's not what I want. So you can go to activate smooth. You actually have to hold shift in order to do this function. With shift holding, you go to brush, go to smooth brush modifier, the description saying that number 6 is grips border. You want to turn to 6 and then smooth it. So it's doing its best to keep the border while smoothing the other area. So I'm gonna lower subdivision here and then smooth it. Okay, for this one I want to show you how I use the Transpose tool to create the freezing folds in between two peaks of the object. So I go to mask and mask the area that I want to crease. Mask it, invert the mask, and then I activate Gizmo 3D, hit Y to turn to Transpose tool, and then drag from one end to another. Then you actually have to go to scale, and you drag, you hold the middle point, drag it towards the left, and then clear the mask. Now you smooth it, inflate, do whatever you want. Like that, and you can do another one, the small one here. You're going to find yourself using smoothing a lot, but smoothing is actually knocking off a lot of detail that you got in the mesh. Say for example for this fold in here, if I use smooth, if you use smooth brush, by default, it's gonna knock out a lot of detail. I lose a lot of information here. But what you want to do most of the time when you're dealing with folding is that you want to relax instead of smooth. What you can activate relax brush is by holding shift, touch your pen tablet down, and then release shift and then start dragging. This is very different than smoothing. Most people don't notice that. When I do hyperbole, I almost always use relax instead of smooth because it retains my details better. When you're sculpting, you want to sometimes get back the old details that you got. That will be the MorphTarget. You go to your highest subdivision, activate MorphTarget, which is down here, MorphTarget. You start a MorphTarget, and what is essentially doing is that it will store, it's like layer, but it's just one layer. You can switch back and forth between layers, and you can use the MorphTarget brush to get back the detail from the previous morph. Okay, so I got the morph stored. I draw it in. This is the second morph. When you switch back to the original one, this is what it happens. Okay, so the effect that it does when you use the brush, this MorphTarget brush, is that, let me show you. That go to B, M, and then O from, B, M, O for MorphTarget. You turn down the Z intensity a bit lower, and then you brush it in, so that it's trying to blend the two morphs together. This is very useful when you go do folding. Right? You can always switch back to the original, or you can essentially get rid of it, or you can delete the MorphTarget entirely. Say this is the morph that I don't want. I want to reverse back to the morph and then delete it and switch back to the original and delete the MorphTarget. Like nothing ever happened.